In this supplement to the main course, we will be talking about voice amplification mode. This mode was introduced a couple of years ago to allow the use of third-party microphones to augment the audio from a presenter or classroom lecturer. This feature is available on the HDL 300, 310 and 410. Voice amplification mode was based on feedback from end users, primarily in education and training markets. When a lecturer or a presenter is addressing a room full of participants over the course of a whole day, they were experiencing voice strain, particularly when video calls were running to support hybrid learning. With voice amplification mode, the presenter can talk normally without having to raise their voice. Their voice is output through the speakers and is mixed with far-end audio so the class can hear both the teacher and remote participants. In much the same way, the audio from the third-party mic is processed and integrated into the feed from the microphone mist software, so remote participants can both hear the presenter and the rest of the audience. Now, to prevent the pickup from third-party microphone interfering with the Nureva microphone mist software, it is primarily designed for use with headset mics because they have a very, very limited pickup zone. Now, whilst this will work with practically any third-party headset microphone, Nureva support mics from Shure and Sennheiser. So this is how the solution works. Firstly, let's look at in-room amplification. Teachers, lecturers or trainers can present to the room and their voice is amplified over the HDL speakers. This reduces strain of having to raise their voice over the course of a day's teaching. They just speak in their normal tone. Here it's worth pointing out a key difference between voice amp mode on the HDL 300 and the 310 and 410. On the HDL 300, the mics on the HDL are still live, so in-room participants can still ask questions and be heard. However, priority is always given to the headset mic. However, on the Generation 2 products, the HDL 310 or 410, you can still work in that same way, but there is an additional option to mute the audience, so only the headset mic can be heard. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in this module. The second element is remote learning and provided that mixed audio feed to remote participants, because in this world of hybrid working and hybrid learning, it is likely that students or training delegates will be unable to attend in person. Using voice amplification mode, the teacher or trainer's voice is prioritized over the student voices and background noise, ensuring remote participants have the best possible experience. On top of this, voice amp mode also works with content playback. This is completely unaffected and can be shared with the room through the HDL speakers as well as with remote students via the UC client. Again, if the teacher or trainer is speaking over the top of the content, their voice will be prioritized. And finally, the solution integrates with leading lecture capture software, so teachers, in-room students and remote students can all be recorded simultaneously. Now, in order to configure voice amplification mode, you must have an in-room PC. And that PC must be running console client equal or greater 1.3.17. The unit must also be enrolled in console cloud. If you're using the HDL 300, it must be running version 2.4.67 or above. If you're using a HDL 310 or 410, then there's no problem. It was supported from day one. Finally, you need to have the specific balanced to unbalanced 3.5mm TRS adapter cable, as we covered in the section on using the auxiliary ports. Stage 1 is the physical connection of the solution. You set up the HDL in the normal way, and then take your unbalanced to balanced cable from the connect module into the receiver box of your wireless mic. You then need to pair the receiver with the transmitter, i.e. the microphone itself. And that's really all that you need to do in terms of physical connection. You then, on the in-room PC, adjust the volume settings on the computer, because this will affect the amplification level. This needs to be done, and it will need to be tweaked in order to make sure it is correct and not blasting people's eardrums when the speaker is presenting. The next stage is to make some changes in console, and this is in console cloud. First of all, set the speaker settings. We recommend that you select custom, and then you set the treble and bass settings to 50 as a starting point. As we're using an auxiliary port on the HDL300, you need to disable sleep mode. The unit will detect the aux in is connected and will then give you the option in the menu to enable voice amplification mode. You can adjust the aux in levels and set the line level to match the receiver. Finally, you then set the amplification levels. Start at medium, because you can always adjust up and down depending on the environment. Finally, you test. You simply connect the headset to transmitter. We recommend standing a couple of meters back from the HDL system itself. Have another person standing at the back of the room so they can check it's working properly. And you simply just talk normally into the wireless headset. If you're using a UC client, which most people will, then make some calls to check that the amplification level is correct. If it's not, then you can simply adjust as we go through the next slide. You will notice a difference in the audio quality between the room audio and the headset audio, as the headset is only picking up a signal from a couple of centimeters away from somebody's mouth. It will also not pick up any background noise and can sound really quiet when the wearer is not talking. Now, there's several ways to adjust amplification, and you can tweak these settings to match the environment. But in essence, changing the master volume on the computer is the first port of call. And then on the transmitter box, you normally have options to adjust gain control or decibel settings. If you start to get feedback, then lower the gain or decibel settings and check that the line in, aux in, is set to line level. Finally, this is specific for the Generation 2 products, the HDL 310 and 410, which use the Connect Module 2. The setup process is exactly the same. However, you have a new mode, which is audience mute. When that third-party microphone is live, with audience mute enabled, the HDL microphones in the room are completely turned off. This eliminates background noise. Audience mute can be toggled via the remote control, and you get a visual representation of this on the soundbar. So when you're in a call and audience mute is off, the soundbar will have a blue LED. When audience mute is on, the soundbar is showing a magenta LED, and they can only hear the presenter. This function can be toggled via the remote control, and this again is another feature that was requested by customers having used voice amp mode generation 1, and we had to wait until the new Connect module 2 became available in order to have the processing power to do this. The upshot of this is that if audience mute is on and therefore the HDL microphones are turned off, you then have the option to use other types of third-party microphones, such as gooseneck or handheld, which have a larger pickup area. If those were used with audience mute off, and therefore the HDL mics live, you get feedback. With audience mute on, the HDL mics are dormant, and you can use other types of third-party microphones. This makes it a much more flexible solution for town halls or places where you want a roving handheld microphone in order to capture feedback from an audience. So that's voice amplification mode. It's a very, very powerful function. We see this going out a lot now into not only education but also corporate environments. It's very, very straightforward to set up and much easier, quicker and cheaper to deploy than a fully integrated solution into a pro audio system.